What's the biggest red flag you've ever ignored? My ex-wife was giddy about a new trainer at the gym. I asked jokingly if she wanted to fuck him. I didn't get a response. Long story short, divorced 2 months later loss. Edit. Outcome, she married him and popped out a kid. It took me months of recovery and support by family and friends. I'm now happily married, smiley face. Lesson. Never let someone sink your ship. Also, if your so seems giddy or start spending more time with someone, pay attention. Had black poop for 4 days. Ignored it. I was popping too much ibuprofen and had a stomach bleed and was bleeding internally. Finally went to the hospital once I started feeling really sick and weak. Turns out that I had lost over half my blood. The doctor told me that within hours I would have gone into shock and died if I hadn't gone to the hospital when I did. Took a few months to recover from that. After dating for a few weeks and spending every minute of free time together, I told my then boyfriend I wanted to spend the day alone to watch breakfast at Tiffany's and drink tea. He freaked out, wanted to know why I didn't love him, why I didn't want to see him, what he did wrong, before eventually guilting me into spending the day with him. It was the start of a 2-year, emotionally manipulative and abusive relationship where I was endlessly smothered by a needy man-child. I was 16 and he was a little older and I didn't know better. She had me drop her off a few houses away whenever we got back from dates. She said she didn't want to wake her parents up. It was usually before 10 when I dropped her off. Edit. I did go inside her house and meet her parents once, but it was a pretty bizarre encounter. They were both very quiet, and they didn't ask me a single question about myself. Didn't ask where I was taking their daughter, didn't ask what I did for a living, nothing. But yeah, I'm positive she lived at home with her parents. She constantly told me I was perfect, and then literally days later, faded and I never heard from her again. I still have no idea what the hell happened. Red flag equals friends who tell you juicy secrets about other people, including people in your friend circle, followed by don't tell anyone I told you though. Advice equals don't ever trust this person with anything you don't want getting around. If they're betraying others behind their backs, then 9 times out of 10, they're doing the same to you once you turn yours. I dated someone I believed to be a pathological liar. I don't have any concrete proof that she's a liar, as the stories she told me were pretty much unverifiable, but I believed very little of what she said. Very little? Good Lord, she was an intense and passionate lovemaker, though, so I kept on. Even though the first night I met her, she was telling me questionable things, but I just kept right on trying to date her. Anyway, she ended up telling lies about me to a lot of people, saying I abused her and such, which I never ever did. Fortunately, I'm such a swell guy, almost no one believed her, which I guess is bittersweet. On one hand, I really didn't abuse her. On the other hand, people didn't believe a woman when she said she was abused. It's a weird world we live in. Back then I was seeing a therapist for a few reasons, mostly anxiety and self-esteem issues. My girlfriend at the time told me that seeing a therapist was for crazy people and that I didn't need to because I had her. She was a horrible person. I keep asking myself why I dated her, and I hate myself for it. On our first date, she asked for a water and the waiter forgot. Big fucking deal, right? A few minutes into the appetizer, the waiter asks if there is anything else he can get us, to which she responds, "I'm pretty sure I asked for a water," while looking directly at him with a condescending look on her face. That relationship lasted longer than I'd like to admit. I dated a girl who was obsessed with Invader Zim. That was bad. My friend has advised me to avoid girls with a fascination with Marilyn Monroe. They are easily identified by the paraphernalia they have around the house, including rugs, coffee cups, shot glasses, bedspreads, clothes, posters, etc. Bonus points if she says, "If you can't handle me at worst, you don't deserve me at my best," and calls herself curvy, just like Marilyn Monroe. The advice seems to hold very true. Bought a house and moved in with girlfriend. She got a cold and was very stuffed up. I had a half bottle of mini thins from 5 years back when they were over-the-counter legal, great for all-nighters in college, pre-Adderall/Ritalin, and side effect of really clearing up sinus congestion. And I knew it was great for congestion, so I offered her a few. A couple days later, I saw the bottle again, and it was down to 1 pill from like 20. I told her that sucked, but didn't think much of it. A month later, she had started a heroin habit with our roommate, and I caught them fucking, and all hell broke loose for a bad 6 months of trying to get 2 junkies out of my life. Lesson: there are obvious signs of addictive behavior before it spirals out of control. I was sitting by a fire with a buddy, because that's what we do in our free time. His girlfriend was there, so third wheel and stuff. He convinced me to call my girlfriend at the time, who only lived a mile or 2 away, and see if she'd come over. I called her. She said she couldn't because she never would tell her dad or grandparents, whom she lived with, about us. Buddy called her. She was suddenly more receptive of the idea. Turns out she was trying to get to him. Good thing he's a good friend. My ex-fiancé started to act suspicious and hid his mobile phone, especially when it vibrated to indicate a message or a notification. He could have been planning an awesome surprise and wanted to hide it from me, but the final straw when I asked to see it, and he shoved me out of the way to leave, not caring if it ended the relationship. Turned out he was sleeping with my best friend at the time, who he used to call for ideas on gifts to buy me, and she decided that he was too good for me. They didn't last longer than a month. I still miss my best friend. TLDR. Fiancé's phone, turns out he was sleeping with best friend. I've posted this before about my ex. He told me that if I ever got cancer and the chemotherapy made me lose my hair, he would dump me because bald girls are disgusting. This was after we'd been together for almost a year. He would also tell me what I could and couldn't wear, even if I wasn't planning to see him that day. He'd yell at me if I wore something on the unapproved list. It's sad that these things, along with quite a few other obvious red flags, didn't make me realize what a douche he was until after the relationship ended. If they avoid questions and try to make you feel bad for communicating what you feel. Also, mostly male friends as a female. Never again. I'm not interested in dating that personality type again, ever. Every girl I've met like that either doesn't seem to understand how to be considerate in a relationship or has cheated on someone. Based on my personal experience, they're now excluded. The first time I met my wife's mother, she spent half an hour talking about medical problems that most people would find disgusting. I didn't realize until after I married my wife that she was trying to scare me off. She has spent the past 15 years trying to get in between my wife and I, trying to start arguments and fights, and generally trying to destroy my marriage. The worst part is, I knew she had done that with all her other daughters' marriages. She has 7 daughters and 2 sons. That's the red flag. My wife and I have decided to love her from a distance, but she still gives us crap and guilts my wife because she doesn't spend enough time with her. I still worry if they ever spend time alone, though. Was on holiday in Thailand, 2004, lying on the beach, soaking up the sun, and generally enjoying the holiday. Got a strange text from my dad in the UK that read, "Get away from the water, there's a tsunami coming." TBH, I didn't know what a tsunami was really, so I ignored it. Fortunately, we were on the island of Koh Samui, which was completely unaffected by the terrible events elsewhere in the region. I'm an arborist. I was kind of worried about a big red oak in a client's backyard, and I said we should do a root excavation and see if it had lost its original roots as I suspected. It would have cost $300. I wanted to wait a few months, and I was like, fine, whatever. A month later, it fell on his house and totally detached the 3rd floor and smashed half of it. It's a historic house, so the repairs were well over $100,000. So I didn't totally ignore it, but I should have really insisted. Now, when people want to blow off my warnings, I tell them about the guy who had the 3rd floor move a few feet to the left while the rest of the house stayed put. I played well a lot. I gamed with a guy whose apartment was burning. Fire depart blasting water on the neighbor's window. He could not see his screen too well with the smoke. He refused to leave during raid night and kept tanking knacks. Kelmar, if you are around, man, you were one crazy dude. I took a raiding break. The red flag. One morning I got a text from my GF at the time saying, "I can't see you today, baby." We didn't have plans. I knew that was a text for someone else, but she was just so sweet and cute I ignored it and thought it was just a mistake because she said she was dreaming about going out with me, but later found out she couldn't. She was cheating on me. I know it's a stupid reason on her part as an excuse, but I was 16 and in love. So 2 nights ago, my buddy tells me that he hooked up with this girl that he has been talking to for 2 weeks. At first, I was super excited for him as he had a nasty breakup a few months ago. Then I asked the obligatory, "So you made sure you wrapped it up, right?" He just met her a few weeks ago. He responds with, "I didn't, but it's okay," because I asked her if she was clean, and she said, "Yeah, she gets checked all the time." I say in silence for a second and then asked, "Did she ask you if you were clean?" His eyes got wide, and then he got quiet. No, she didn't. I think it kind of sunk in as he didn't say much for the rest of the night. He's awaiting a doctor visit soon, so I'm waiting to see how this one shakes out. TLDR, wrap it up, guys. Told me she loved me while she was still technically dating someone else, and we hadn't been talking for more than a week with no physical intimacy. She dumped her boyfriend and started dating me. Girl was all kinds of crazy, and I still feel bad for her ex because I pretty much stole her from him and he took her dumping him really hard. When my now ex-GF spent $5K on their 15-year-old wiener dog after the vet told her the dog would only live another week max. She even said it was a little selfish, but the poor dog had an I.V drip for about a year before this and couldn't even walk. Reason I ignored it at first because she was Slash is just a sweet and loving nature person, but she did this with several different things. She couldn't manage her money correctly, even with a great paying job, and and was 26 and couldn't move out of the house because she had so much debt. We broke up after 2 years. When I made the joke about a restaurant being built close to her parents' house, I said, I love their breakfast so much. I can get a biscuit every day. Before work. Me? Yeah, that'll be nice. You can get a biscuit there for the next 25 years. It was a douche move, I know, but when we broke up months later, I look back on everything, and it's amazing all the clues I missed. When you first break up, all you can think of is the good times and not the bad. TLDR, she couldn't accept the slightest change in her life. A guy I dated for a while told me sometimes I could be a little clingy. I brushed it off because I previously dated a guy who I thought was as clingy can get, and I thought it was one of those things where if you think you're clingy or you admit to it, you're probably not as clingy as you think. No, I was way wrong. While we were talking about the meaning of life, my former best friend said the meaning of life was to do anything you can make only yourself happy. Shouldn't have been surprised when I found out he was a narcissistic sociopath. He also broke someone's finger for watching a video on their phone when he wanted to play the piano. That flag could have covered the continent, and I missed it. Went to the fair and felt sick afterwards. Thought it was a stomach virus. Felt better the next day, but progressively got worse as the week wore on. Finally, after 3 or 4 days, I went to the hospital and found out I had pancreatitis. Doctor at our local hospital didn't know how to treat and almost died before being transferred. Fun times. Reminds me of a call I got. I was working on homework when my phone rang from someone really close to me. I answered, and there were just faint sounds on the other end of the line. Being distracted, I said something like, "Hey, you there?" "Oh, you," but dialed me, waited a couple seconds, and hung up. A couple hours later, I find out that the person who called me had attempted suicide. They had phoned me to hear my voice for the last time. Thank fuck they survived. Made me reevaluate how attentive I was to others. I make sure to always call anyone back who but dials me now. My ex was always talking about how cool and nice this guy was in a competing fraternity. Lo and behold, they are now married. 2 weeks after we broke up, all of her friends posted on her Facebook that it was about time they got together. 5 years down the shitter. LOL edit. My top comment is about somebody that I used to know. Fantastic. Black poop story. A roommate and I had an Oreo eating contest. A few hours later, he came out of his room, white as a ghost, claiming he had stomach cancer. I asked, why does he think that? He says it's because his poop was black, and according to Google, black poop is stomach cancer. We went to the ER, and he's in full panic mode. We're talking to the doctor, and he keeps repeating, it's stomach cancer. I know it, so I lean into the doctor and asked, would eating Oreos do this? And he says it can. You would have to eat like half a package in a sitting, though. Then he smiled. He ate half a package, didn't he? My grandfather, in good health, collapsed one day on the stairs, his legs totally non-functional. He crawled into bed and took a nap, was fine afterwards. Didn't say anything to my grandmother until a few days later. She made him drive to the hospital to have it checked out. He never left the hospital again. Yep, it took me a very long time, but I finally realized that every girl I've had a crush on since I was 14, and every girl I've ever been with except one, has been crazy to some degree or another. The only one who wasn't crazy is the only one I've ever dumped. Obviously, I like crazy, even though I am in denial about it. The only logical conclusion I can draw from this is that I am crazy. My father has a long track record with crazy women. I've been a witness to a lot of shit, and I can verify that in rare occasions, it really is everybody else. I don't know why he's only attracted to lunatics. I only thank the stars that he didn't pass his curse on. Well, at least, not that curse. Hair loss, on the other hand, one of them attacked him with a sword. A fucking sword. I was very nearly never born because of a sword. Very few people in the last century can make that claim. Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.